Overseas, as mainland China struggles to contain a fast-spreading Omicron outbreak, it reported 1,437 symptomatic COVID-19 cases yesterday, with about 93% locally transmitted. And amid the surge, for the first time, authorities will allow the use of rapid antigen tests to diagnose COVID-19. Well, these tests are widely used elsewhere in the world, including Singapore, but have been restricted in China, where the virus has been kept under control for most of the past 2 years. The kits will now be available for use by ordinary citizens and clinics. Let's find out more from our China correspondent, Elizabeth Law, who joins me from Beijing. So Liz, with China keeping a zero COVID-19 strategy for the past 2 years, what's daily life like for the average person compared with Singapore and other countries that are adopting endemicity?
Right. Thanks for having me as usual, Ollie. So China is basically much like what we remember of pre-COVID, the world pre-COVID. Everyone is going about their daily lives as per normal. There are no limits on the number of people that can go into shopping malls. There is no restrictions on places you can go except places of COVID, of course. And essentially, diners are able to gather till whatever time the restaurant is open until, which is, of course, beyond 10:30, unlike in Singapore. The only slight difference is that everyone is wearing a mask. So essentially, living in China now is like living within this COVID-free bubble. You are almost free to do whatever you want, except the fact that you can't leave the country easily. But when it comes to certain measures like safe distancing, you still have to scan a QR code to enter a building, but how strictly that is enforced is really depending on where you are going to as well. And of course, there are other small little things that have changed. For instance, people no longer spit as much as they used to in the streets, which is something that I've been personally very happy about. And I think people are just a little bit more mindful about personal hygiene when you go into restaurants, when you go into places, even when you go into cars, like private hire cars, you do see bottles of sanitizer everywhere. And, you know, it's just become a way of life.
And how does the public feel about this approach that China is taking of eliminating the virus instead of living with it? Will, you know, given the current sentiment, will there be a shift in control methods moving forward?
Right. So there are two parts to that question. And also, I suppose much of Chinese society has also been slightly divided on this. Initially, at the very early stages, of course, people were very supportive of the government framing this as a war, a battle against the virus. But as time has gone on, you know, they keep promising that there will be 春暖花开when the spring comes and the weather is warmer. Flowers will bloom, in a poetic way of saying that this will all soon be over, this too shall pass. But clearly 2 and a bit more years on, this isn't quite happening. And they're seeing the rest of the world reopening while China still has fairly strict measures. Even if life is pretty much as per normal, but whenever there are cases and small outbreaks, people go into lockdown. Estates are sealed off, office buildings are sealed off, including our office building sometime last year when there was a close contact that came here for lunch. Everyone here was put under lockdown and had to be tested before being allowed out. So that sort of thing creates a lot of uncertainty. People aren't exactly willing to travel domestically anymore because they worry that they might go on a holiday and end up getting stuck somewhere in quarantine for 2 weeks. And that has been reflected also in consumer spending that has been a bit sluggish. And so people are in a way tired. But of course, whenever that is being suggested that, you know, maybe we should start living with the virus, there is this other very, very vocal nationalistic side that comes out and tries to shut down that conversation. So for instance, last year, there was a very prominent Dr. Zhang Wenhong based in Shanghai. He said that maybe we should start looking at strategies that, you know, long-term strategies on how we're going to live this virus. And immediately he was shut down and people doxed him and made a complaint against him for plagiarism. So it's all very nasty. And even if the government wants to try and have a roadmap forward for trying to live with this virus, I think they have to tread very carefully, because how do you undo 2 years of messaging and 2 years of policy that has been, been all focused on trying to just completely eliminate the virus.
I see. So then Liz is opening up a pipe dream at this stage. My Mandarin isn't as good as yours, but is spring coming anytime soon?
I suppose the short answer to it is no, it's not. And today, that same doctor that I mentioned earlier, Dr. Zhang Wenhong, he put up another piece to say that, are we actually going through a long, bitter winter, or are we actually going through something that we need to learn to live with? So the short answer to your question is no, I don't think China is going to open up in the way that many people are hoping that it would, meaning that without people will be able to travel and quarantine free quite easily, the way we are used to. But I suspect that, and given indications from what policymakers have been talking about last week during the 2 sessions meetings, I think because economic recovery is still something that is very big on their minds, they would possibly ease visa restrictions. We might see more people being allowed to travel in, but quarantine is here to stay for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Liz, and of course, stay safe in Beijing. That was Elizabeth Law there, the Straits Times' China correspondent. Over in Shenzhen, 2 major chip suppliers to Apple, Foxconn and Unimicron Technology have suspended operations in the city. After 60 new local cases were confirmed on Saturday, Shenzhen will conduct 3 rounds of mass testing.